And hey now, hey now, hey now, welcome in and thank you guys for joining us. I'm back running the screen again, so I already apologize to anyone for any wrong pans, anything else. But I want to thank you, ladies, for joining us. So, what made us do this episode tonight is in our last episode. At the end, Miss Keisha talked to us about how she had just lost her brother. And then, of course, us being all the sweet spirits that we are, everyone else was like, "Oh my gosh, I can agree, I can agree." And we wanted to come back on and share some of those processes, some of how you feel. But ultimately, we want everybody to be excited. Well, I do. I want everyone to be excited because I believe that grieving is the process to healing.
It is.
Let me add Miss Nicole to our screen. Hey, Miss Nicole, welcome in.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you
Hello.
for joining us.
You're welcome.
I was just giving a little background, which was we all decided that we needed to do this episode. We all had so many things to say about grieving and healing, and you ladies are the perfect spirits to have on the porch with us tonight. So thank you very much for joining us. Introduce from the left to the right to the bottom. Well, when I call your name, tell me who you are. Miss Keisha, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Keisha with the Wifey Lounge. Hey.
Oh, me? Is it on me? Well, I'm your girl, Christy Lee, Beyond the Walls Outreach. Hello, everyone. Sorry about the delay.
Hello, everyone. I am Coach T. Nicole, and I am the founder of Driven by Purpose LLC. And hello, good evening.
We can't hear you, Miss Cheryl.
I'll tell y'all when I'm running the screen. I was telling the ladies earlier that I had passed around the episode, the link to the episode in Messenger, and there were quite a few people that were like, "How did you know I was going through this?" And I was like, "I don't know, but join and comment and let us know how you're doing." Let me get my comments turned on because I see we have some already. Hello, Miss Harvey. Hello, Miss Felicia. Thank you guys for joining us. So, who would like to start telling us a little bit about their story, their processes, and what the grieving process was like for you? Nobody wants to jump in? I'll go first. So it was rough for me. I lost my father when I was 14 and I lost my mother about 3 years ago. And so I think I thought since I lost my father at such a young age I got a pass on losing my other parents. So I got a little older, but maybe not. I was a little shaken when I lost my mom, frankly, because she had gone through so many things and she always came out on top. So this was going to be no different, even though it was a heart transplant. I know, but that's baby girl's faith, right?
Mm.
Um, when she didn't make it, I was a little shaken for quite a while. I went through a process of making sure that I kept to the training that I gotten, going to church, prayer, and things like that. You know, some of those things you don't know if you're actually going to do when you lose a parent. Were you doing them because they were there and encouraging you to do it, or is it part of you? So that was a good thing for me to find out. I spent a lot of time excuse me, because I'm not going to fall out just yet. I spent a lot of time to myself. Don't know if that was necessarily good for the people around me, my loved ones. I can remember some conversations where they felt like, maybe I wasn't necessarily there as strong as I could be. But keeping to myself was the best way for me to grieve. And I think I saw a meme that said, hush until you're finished healing. That way, you don't say things that you shouldn't be saying and those kinds of things. So the grieving process for me was not only missing them, because I miss them so much every day. The biggest part was learning a lot about myself. And in that, I found some healing. In that, I found some bonds, some things that when my mother was alive and she said them, they might have went in one ear and out the other. Well, now I remember them, not just here, but here too. So it really was a healing time for me, but it wasn't right at first. right? It's taken me. I told you it's been about 3 years, so it's taken me a while to get to this point. But I am glad to be here, and I'm glad to be sharing this stage with you ladies, who I know are going to help me even further along my way. So now that I've been babbling and about to start crying, who's next?
You got me over here teary eyed, and I didn't want to.
Come on with it. Come
But
on with it.
for me, it's like it's been a process because I grieve a lot when I lose anybody. It doesn't matter if it was, I lost my father in 2018, but I lost my grandparents. I lost so many different people, but the hardest one for me has been my father. And I didn't notice it for a while that I stopped crying. After I lost my auntie, which was his sister, I stopped crying. And so that has been really hard for me because we have to cry. And I forgot how to cry. So lost him a day before my birthday, and it has been like in 2018, and it has been very trying. Some days I want to cry, some days I want to scream, some days I want to do some other things. It's like I go through all of these different emotions and all these different feelings, and it's been rough, but now I'm at a place in my life where I've been able to get to myself and like shut off the world so that way I can grieve the way I need to grieve. And that's like if I feel like I want to run, if I want to cry, release, whatever it is, I'm able to do that because now I'm learning how to have self-control, how to release, and relearning how to cry because it's necessary. Because I realized, like, if you don't cry and you have all of this stress, worrying, and doubt, and all of that because you lost your parent or because you lost a loved one, it's like it's detrimental to your health. You don't know what it's doing, the damage that it's doing to your body. So I'm relearning how to do all of the things. Like I said, feel the emotions, but feel it so I can heal it. And that's just been a part of my journey for me.
Amen. Again, I'm glad that you brought that out because that was something I was feeling, like I said, kind of bad about the fact that I needed to pull back and spend some time to myself. So thank you for giving me that validation.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I'm just gonna, they say some people may say if you don't cry, then you're not sorry, right? If you
Mm,
don't cry, then you're not grieving, right?
right.
But grieving come in different stages, right? Everyone has their own way of how they're gonna grieve. So just because you ain't crying, that don't mean you're not grieving.
Agreed.
So
I went through a time where I was like, especially when my mom passed away, I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I wanted to be on the
mhm,
floor, rolling around, doing something with and they would not come. It was almost as though she had prayed for us to be strong enough to get through the moment, because
yeah.
as soon as it was done, boy, did they come. But again, it was part of the teaching, something that, she had taught me to be strong, to get through the moment and then go. But I'm glad you brought that up too, because for a while there, I was thinking I was evil. What's wrong with you, girl?
Yeah. 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 Well, so for me, I grieved. My son is 20. Let's see. So my dad's been deceased for 18 years, right? And still today I grieve, because that was my dad. I was a daddy's girl. And I still grieve for him. I grieve for him when I'm going through something difficult, in my life where I may need his advice, as a father, to guide me in those questions where, I may need some guidance on what he think I should, how I handle a man, that's what you look forward to from your father. So even with him passing away, I still grieve for him, and recently, yes, I lost my brother to throat cancer.
I'm sorry.
Um, I grieved the day that he died because, for one, he was the baby boy, I was the baby girl. So we shared a unique relationship with my twin sister because I am a twin. So we
Oh, okay.
shared a unique, relationship. And, his name was Christopher Martin, but he wanted to be called Chris. And as a little sister, I would say, okay, Christopher, and he's like, my name not Christopher. I'm like, it's Chris. But when we found out what April about his diagnosis with throat cancer, and I figured, okay, we have some time, do some research. Let's see what we can do. And, God said different. You know, we had to make, my siblings and I say, we have to make the best of the time we have now with him, because we don't know what we have remaining, right? So God works in mysterious ways. My daughter plays soccer. We had to travel to Houston for a soccer tournament. In the process of us getting ready Saturday morning, I received a phone call from my older sister. And that phone call was, Chris is not doing well. You need to get over here, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, Lord Jesus, how do I handle this? I want to be in two places at one time, and I can't not be in two places at one time. So I knew that he was in good hands because he was already in the hospital, right? I knew he was in good hands. I knew my other brother was there and my sister was there. So I attended my daughter's soccer game the whole time, and I'm praying to God. I say, just give me this time to attend my daughter's soccer game, and then give me that time to make it to see my brother, right? Hey, that's what I did. And he allowed me that time, right? He allowed me that 3 days, I would say Friday, Saturday, and no, Saturday and Sunday, 2 days. He allowed me 2 days, 2 full days to be there and care for my brother. And when I walked through the door, he couldn't really speak at that time. He done lost his voice, but you can see the reaction in his eyes, like, she's here. And I'm like, yes, I am here, right? I am here to take care of you the best way that I can while you laying down in this bed. And that's what I did. Was it hard? Yes, it was hard, because my brother, he's a neat freak, right? I was like, you know what? Out of all 6 kids, you can come to my house anytime. You're so neat. Like, okay, we can do this, right? But he was like, he would always have a broom sweeping something up. And he was like, Dad, don't go there. And he'd be like, you didn't cook dinner yet? Like, your husband have to eat. What did that? You wasn't raised like that, right? That was who he was, right? Always keeping something in line. And just to know that soon I wouldn't have that, right? Soon on June 24th, I wouldn't have him calling and singing happy birthday. It was like, you know what? I have to make these last days the best days that we can have together, right? And I thank God for allowing me to do that, right? So once we left Houston, back Monday morning, got up, prayed, went to work. After work, I called my oldest brother and I say, hey, let me speak with Chris. I say, put him on speakerphone. And, he put him on speakerphone, and I say, hey, how are you? And he, just talking, knowing he can't answer me, but just to hear him know that he hears my voice meant a lot to me, right? And I say, you know what, Chris, it is okay. I say, it's okay. I say, you're fine and it's okay. And I told my brother Rob, I said, can he hear me? And he was like, yes. And his eyes are watering. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hang up. I hung up the phone. And still today, I remember it was 6 o'clock when I last spoke to my brother. And 6:30, I received that call and he had taken his last breath. So I didn't grieve right away, but after, when I was with my siblings working, getting things in line and trying to figure out all the arrangements, I grieved, but not like I grieve now, right? My grieving started after my brother was buried, right? Me coming back home and knowing that I have one less sibling, one that I was very, very close with, it's a process, right? And I have to tell myself every day, teach myself every day how to grieve with his loss, right? For the last 2 weeks, I would just lay in bed and I would look at his obituary, and I would say, man, I can't believe that you're gone, and I'll go in the bathroom and I'll just break down and I'll just let it out, right? And I think now, today, I can say that my grieving process is a little bit easier because I didn't want it to. My brother was like, I don't want it to affect your physical life, Keisha. I don't want it to affect, your thinking process, right? And when he came to me and he said, I'm okay, I was like, okay, I can control my grieving now, and I can just not really say deal with the fact that he's gone, but I can accept the fact that he's no longer here with us, right? And allow myself to move on and know that, he is in a better place. But when you grieving, someone like a mother, a sibling, or grandparents, because, my husband lost his grandfather 2 to 3 years ago, and even as he grieved different, his grieving of everyone grieves different, right? So for me, I expected to see him, cry every day, and um, just wonder why did this happen to him. But my husband, he found a different way to grieve. He didn't cry, but I could tell that he grieved, and every now and then I can see where he deals with it when the holidays come up or his grandfather's birthday comes up. So um and I just tell myself I have to open it up and just let it all out, right? Because at some point in time you have to determine whether you're grieving, or rather it's a depressed stage, right? Because you have to know the difference. You can grieve for a certain period of time, but sometimes that grieving can turn into depression, right? And you want to catch that before it turns into a depressed stage. So that's why I told myself I have to catch it before it turns into a depressed stage, right? Um, and that's how I deal with it on an everyday basis. I miss him dearly. I miss him calling and say, hey baby sis, this what's going on, what you think of this, and I'ma miss that. I it's still now, it's hard, but my mother-in-law said you have to let it out, Keisha. Just grieve how long you have to grieve, and in due time it'll be easy for you. It'll be easy for you. So I promise myself and my brother, that I will try to be there the best way I can, for his kids. I was, an aunt that really wasn't involved a lot in their lives. And because I didn't live in Louisiana, right? I relocated years ago. So I've been in Dallas for over 20 years. So like my twin sister, she's there. So she was really more involved in it, right? But I made him a promise that, I will try to be more involved, in their lives. Because at the end of the day, my brother did love his kids. And I want to be that support system for them. So, yeah.
Excellent, most excellent. That time that you get with them, for me, that time that you get with them to take care of them or be with them, and you don't know, maybe they know, because I think they say people get feelings or whatnot, but you don't know, and you're still there, and you're still doing it. That's one of the things that I try to teach to my son is to show people that you love them now while they're on this side
Right.
of the grass. And again, holding on to our mental health or mental wellness from last week. Definitely taking care of yourself. No, there's always still boundaries and whatnot, but definitely doing what you can for people while they're on this side of the grass. Miss Christy, can we do a question before we get to you? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All righty. She said it's hardest when you know you need someone to say, "Hey, are you okay?" or "How you're doing." And yes, it's still lots of grieving after the burial. That was from Miss Felicia. We agree with you there, Miss Felicia. There's so much more that goes on after the repast, y'all. And you really don't realize that. People do their best to be there for you when it's all going on and when everything's going on. But after the burial happens, then yeah, it is.
Hi,
It's still
Felicia.
there.
That's my twin sister, guys, ladies. That's what I say. Hi, Felicia.
She says yes. Now let me look at her. Yep, that's your
Yes,
twin.
we look just alike, identical. Our kids even look alike. That's the scary part, right?
Oh wow. Thank you for joining us, Miss Felicia and Miss Cheryl. Love your name, Miss Cheryl. I don't have a Y in
Alrighty.
mine, but love yours. And she says, I know, let it go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry about that delay, Miss Christie. Please give us your wisdoms.
Well, I've had a lot of people that I know that love me. Remember, I had that issue about love, and I had a lot of people that loved me that passed in the last few years. And but one thing that I can hold on to is their memories.
Memories.
And
Yeah.
my grandfather was one of the first ones to pass, and just like I had secluded myself from the family. I was mad at the family and everything, because I felt like they should have done more, and that he would have been, striving more if they would have done more. And I asked the Lord. I had asked the Lord. I says, "Why did my papa die?" And he said he didn't want to be a burden to the family, and that hurt me. And it's not for me to determine, what happens to a person. But I was mad, as I said, at the whole family. And my papa came to me in a dream, and he said, "Christy, how's everybody?" Because I'm the one that keeps up with everybody.
Mhm.
And I couldn't tell him, you know. And so I had to repent, because that was, I had anger in my heart. I was mad, and I couldn't even allow love or wanted love at that point, because I'm mad at everybody, because I felt like they should have done more. But when my grandpa came and he said, "Christy, how's everybody doing?" And I couldn't tell him, and that was his way of saying, "Christy, you got to reconnect with the family." And
Yeah.
so, and that's what I did, and that's what I've been doing. Um, my great aunt Joyce, she passed, and she was not just my great aunt, but she was my best friend. She was my corner man. She pushed me, and when I wasn't doing right, she'd clap her hands. She said, "Christy, you know what you're supposed to do." And so her was hard for me as well. Um, but I just hang on to what we had together, because I had done something. And she visited me in my dream. So they visit me in my dream, and she says, "Christy," she, like she normally says, she says, "Why'd you do that?" And I said, "Because I wanted to." And she goes, "Oh." And she has this way and this attitude about her, you know. And I go up and down. I don't really think I've really grieved my loved ones passing, because I keep holding on to them, as they visit me in my dreams. My Aunt Karen, she was close to me, and she passed. And just yesterday, last night actually, I had a dream, because when she used to stay here, she used to sit on this couch right here, and she would be the first thing I see in the morning. And so I asked her, I says, "Can you move to the other side?" And she came there, and I wanted to tell her, I says, "I love you so much," because I don't think that she realized how much I loved her, how much we loved her. And I think that, sometimes that helps fight more. And I'm not taking ownership of that and saying that is, but I feel like sometimes it helps to fight. And another death that was just really, really hard on me was just a couple of months ago, and it was my aunt Corletta, I love, and she just loved me, and I loved her. And when I heard that she was going on hospice, I made it my point to get there, because when they say hospice, you don't know what's going to happen. And so I made it my point. I told my boss I got to leave, and my boss let me there. And she just kept saying, "I love you. I love you. I love you." And I said, "I love you too. I love you too." And I think that, you think that once like, I wasn't trying to say goodbye. I was just wanting her to know I loved her, and I loved her so much. But and I don't think I ever told any of them goodbye, because I wasn't trying to let them go. And I still have not told any of them goodbye, because I'm not trying to let them go.
Mhm.
And I don't, the memories, I don't the memories I have are good memories. And that's what keeps me up. And that's what keeps me encouraged, because I have so many great memories with them and of them that I don't have to hold on to their passing. My cousin the other day, she posted, she says, I have videos of Aunt Joyce when she was like on her bed. And if anybody wants to see, if y'all ready. And I was like, don't put me in that group text, because I don't want to see that. I don't want to remember her like that. I want to remember her vibrant. I want to remember her talking noise to everybody. I want to remember her popping that gum. I don't want to, have to dwell on the fact that she's passed. I want to dwell on the fact that she lived, and I think that's the way I'm just coping with it, because I'm looking at, they lived. They lived. I love them. I had a chance to be a part of their lives, but I didn't say goodbye. And I wasn't trying to say goodbye. So even these years, and I don't even know, with talking to you guys, because I just now realized I hadn't said goodbye. I don't even know if I'm going to say goodbye. But I hadn't heard from my grandfather in my dreams in a while, and I hadn't heard from my Aunt Joyce. And so, I'm holding on to him, but God has them. And so I can rest in that God has them, and thank God that that He did take care of them, even in the life that they had, because they lived good lives.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
I know one of the biggest things is your upbringing sometimes, and how you view as death. You can be taught that death is it, and it's the end, and it's final, and that hurts. But as I got older, and that's how I was taught up and all the way up until my father's death. After that, it was awesome to see people celebrate death, and to have an understanding that death is inevitable, that we all have our day and we have our time, no matter how long we wish, or short, or however that it will be. We all have our time, and that it's a beautiful thing when we get to go home and we're no longer in pain. And even though I know that he would have never been a burden to you, feeling like you're a burden to someone else, especially when we have these strong ancestors that we have that are used to doing everything for themselves, and now they're sick. It's a hard thing, but realizing that they get to move on, like I said, and be with God, and still be with us. You said you're not saying goodbye. I'm not saying goodbye.
Yeah.
I still talk to my mother and I've, been picking up on talking to my dad too. I still talk to them sometimes like they're still here. Now, I don't know if somebody's going to lock me up for that later on, but right now it gives me ultimate peace, because I promise you, I can hear them speak back to me in my spirit, and that gives me peace.
Yeah.
Now, I was not there at first. When all this very first happened, I was not there at first. I will look it up once we get a little bit further on, but I know there are 5 stages to grief, and I held on to anger for a minute, for quite a minute. Even though I was still pressing through and trying to do the right things, I still held on to anger for a minute. Thank each and every one of you guys for your shares. So we talked. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Miss Chrissy.
One thing I was thinking about too is, because sometimes you don't have the time to grieve, because you got to get going to doing something else. Like,
Yeah.
I have kids, and sometimes we don't, because I don't even know, just even thinking about it. We've been talking about this show and about grief, because I hurt and I'm grieving because they're gone. And then I changed my mind to think about, having them here. But it's like, sometimes we don't even have the time to grieve. It's like there's one thing after another, or we have to, prepare ourselves to do something else. You take care of our kids or something like that, that it doesn't allow for it. And grieving is a natural process, and everybody goes through it differently,
Differently.
and everybody should be allowed their opportunity to grieve. You can't put a time limit on when I've got to stop crying for, my aunts or my grandfather. You can't put a time limit on that, and everybody has their own process, and we should allow and respect people's process. Even when we trying to encourage them, not to get into a state of depression, they still have to go through their process,
Mhm.
to overcome it, to conquer it.
And I'm glad you said that. It's respecting everyone's process, I think, is like a big one in the very beginning. Well, you didn't cry long enough, or, you cried too short or too long. Everyone has their idea of what they think should be going on. And I'm glad you said it, because it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It's about what you got to do for you to get you through the moment. And of course, hoping to be strong enough for those around you, like you said, your kids and things like that, but you got to do what you got to do for you. And I'll be honest and say I'm stepping on my own toes, because I was like that, with my grief. It's like, I don't think you handled it the way I would have handled it. And that was very wrong of me.
Mm.
I've come out of that a little bit, but that was very wrong of me. Miss Felicia says memories are the greatest and definitely helps get you through. Yes, ma'am, they
Amen.
do.
Amen.
So
And
I'm sorry, Miss Cheryl, go ahead. What you were saying.
no, ma'am, the floor is yours.
Um, so we're talking about grieving, right? And we're talking about grieving when we've lost a loved one. But we also want to keep in mind that it's other elements that allows an individual to grieve, right? And I say that because of the organization that I have, right? The Wifey Lounge is what I have. So you may have wives that's grieving for other reasons, right?
Mm.
How does that subside with the grief of losing a loved one? Because at the same time, they're still grieving, right? People can grieve for, the loss of loved ones. They can grieve for, a broken marriage. They can grieve for low self-esteem. They can, grieve because of the way they look. It's different levels of grieving, right? Um, and we all together, we have one thing that's unique where we're grieving because we've lost someone dear to our lives and dear to our hearts. But I also want to say and put out there that it's other reason why individuals are grieving in the world today, and with that aspect, they also have to find a way of how they're going to grieve with what they're dealing with on an everyday basis. Find a solution, a strategy that's going to help you to deal with that type of grieving that you deal with, right? Because me personally, grieving with my brother, it's other things that I grieve with. When I'm not the Keisha I know that I should be, I grieve because I'm not that Keisha, right?
Mhm.
And when I'm not that Keisha, I grieve in a different aspect, to where how I'm gonna fix myself to where I'm back to that Keisha, right? Or if my husband and I have a miscommunication, I grieve for that thing too, because I'm like, well, we shouldn't be having a miscommunication, right? In our marriage, we should be on the same page, right? So, like I said, it's different ways that people grieve for different changes in their life, I would say. So, um, once again, grieving is there too, So I just wanted to touch bases on that too as well.
It's a part of life. We try to avoid it because of how it makes us feel.
Hmm.
But grieving and the processes is all a part of life. I know I try to avoid it if I can.
Yeah.
Let's see some comments. Miss Ebony said yes to everything that you just said. She said, and losing yourself in a relationship as well, kind of like what you just said is the grieving process. And Miss Cheryl, my buddy, my virtual twin, asked us what are the 5 steps of grief, and I just happen to have them here for you, Miss Cheryl. The first one is denial.
Mm.
The second one is bargaining. The third one is depression. The fourth one is anger.
Why you leave the door open?
And the fifth one is acceptance.
Mm.
And again, being completely honest when I say that I am just hitting acceptance.
Mm.
That's some good
So
ones.
so let me ask everyone. I know Miss Chrissy had talked about being angry. Um, how about denial? What does anyone remember experiencing denial? And do you want to share that with us?
I I experienced denial in the beginning. And what I mean by that is when my daddy, for a couple months, I was working every single solitary day. And then it was just like this one day I just looked at daddy, he began to lose weight. And so he kept saying that he was tired. And I
Mm,
don't everything is gonna be all right. My daddy gonna be fine, stop smoking or whatever the case may have been. But for 6 months, I just seen him deteriorate. And it took me a long time to process what was taking place. But the good thing is God allowed me to be there. But
mm,
every day he'll be like, I'm tired. And I'm like, I asked him, like, what do you mean by you're tired? He like, I'm tired. And it wasn't a physical tired. It was everything. He was ready to go. And I'm like, I didn't want him to leave. I'm like, he would bounce back. He would get stronger, even though I slowly watched him die. And so it wasn't until probably like 2 weeks before he actually transitioned, because he coded on us. And so that's when it really sunk in that my daddy might not be here, even though I had high hopes that he was going to come home from the hospital. But
yeah.
was that moment, in that moment of him coding and then putting him to this machine, and it was like he was on the machine for two weeks, and then for him to come out of the off the respirator, and he was like, he started talking. I was like, Daddy, I love you. And to hear my daddy say I love you, and that was like the last thing I heard him say, that was very challenging for me. So like right now, I'm crying, I'm about to cry, because I never really just had to just openly express that. But to see him, I'm like, I never thought in a million years that I wouldn't be able to see him, talk to him.
Yeah.
Even he visits me. He visits me in a dream often. But I needed this today more than ever. But that's my piece. Mm.
I am still in denial. There are some days when I expect her, my mother certainly, to still call me, to still come around the corner, to still say, "Girl, you know better than that." I still am, I'm still waiting. I know that that's not healthy. I know that that's not healthy. I do know that. But I just haven't let go. And you know what? I don't think I have to. I really don't think that I have to. Does anybody else want to share their denials?
So my denial came when um, I was expecting my first child, my son, and I gave birth to him at 6 months. Woke up one morning and having a little complication. I'm like, it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna go to work and we'll be all right. And it didn't turn out the best way that I wanted it to turn out. So I gave birth to my son at 6 months, and he lived for 2 hours. A big denial for me. It was a big denial because once you give birth to a baby and you go home, it's supposed to be with you,
Always.
right?
Hmm.
So that was a big denial for me. I was in disbelief. I couldn't understand why this would happen to me. Why would, God allow me to give birth at 6 months, after being on bed rest in the beginning. And, it was just, how do you accept something like that? Right. And, today, Keyshawn, which is, his name, because I had to have funeral service, and how does a mother prepare to bury a child at 6 months, right? Um, which took me time to finally accept and not be in denial anymore and say, you know what, hey, I've been through it. I lost a kid at 6 months, and I just couldn't understand why. I would lock myself up in my room or in a closet, and I'd just be like, why? I would feel my stomach, and I'd be like, what happened? My mom was just here. We had just put up, the baby bed, made the bed, and we were preparing for this. We were excited. So it was a huge denial, huge denial. So still today, he would be 21. Um, but he visits me too very often. And we every year for his birthday, if I can't make it, my mother-in-law is there. We have flowers on his grave. We decorate for the holidays, and that's what kept me going, and helped me to accept the denial that yes, it did happen to you, Keisha, and yes, you may be in denial for a while, but you have to first accept the fact that you've been through it, right? Um, but that was a big denial for me. And so today when I go to the graveyard, I visit, and um, the wind start blowing, and I'm like, oh, I'm here. So just having that relationship with him that way and visiting him helped me to get over the denial that yes, I did lose a child. I did have to bury a child, and that never gets easy for any mother, especially that young, to have to bury a kid. So that was a huge denial for me. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. The visits, though, I'm glad you brought that up. The visits, I think the very first time I tried to go to my mother's grave, I couldn't get out there. I couldn't remember how to get to the cemetery. It was like I had been blocked. But once I finally got there and I was able to talk to her and get some things off my chest, it really does. It really does feel good to go and do the visits. Miss Felicia said, with my brother, the denials were my ifs. And I'm assuming she means by that, like, if he would have made it, if you guys would have known a little sooner. Is that right, Miss Keisha? Chime in. I mean, Felicia. I'm calling y'all the same name. Miss Felicia, is that right? Chime in and let us know. We definitely want to make sure that we are addressing your question correctly. But I understand that. What if they would have told me sooner? What if they would have taken medicine? What if we would have switched doctors when we thought about it? What if they didn't smoke? What if they didn't drink? What if they didn't drive that day? Just the what ifs will eat you alone. She said yes. That's what she was talking about. The denials were the what ifs and feeling like there's something you can do. So again, I say the biggest thing there, and y'all, I really do mean it when I say it. I know that at my mother's funeral, people thought something was wrong with me. Again, I told you I had the problems with crying. But there was a certain type of peace because I know I had done what I was supposed to do. Not as much as baby girl would like to do, right? But I had done my part while she was on this side. And that gives you a whole different kind of peace. So I can't emphasize that enough. Y'all, if you have loved ones, you ain't got to wait for them to be sick.
Mhm.
You can reach out and start developing relationships now. You don't have to eat at each other's house. You don't have to go shopping every weekend, but build those bonds, especially with older friends, not even just family, older bonds. Build those bonds because tomorrow's not promised to
Yeah.
anyone. Miss Cheryl said, I was in denial when I lost my mother because my stepdad wouldn't let me be with her. I lived 4 hours from them and she passed. He wouldn't let me be with her. Last words to me was looks, listen, learn, but no love. I told her okay. I walked away, but when I made it home, I got the call that I didn't get to be with her. I'm
Mm.
so sorry about that, Miss Cheryl. And I'm so sorry about, again, individuals who want to step in and tell you how you need to handle grief and things of that nature. I'm sorry you didn't get to be with her at the end, but I hope that you get to be with her now. I hope that her spirits and the things that she taught you and said to you are still there. I know they're not the same, and I'm really sorry that somebody took that from you. I really am.
You
And
know,
Miss Felicia says, Amen. I'm sorry. I'm loving the questions. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. Miss Keisha, go ahead.
Oh, me?
I
Oh,
thought
that
you were
was
saying
that was
something. Oh, that
Oh
was Miss
no, no.
Christie.
I was just in disbelief and shaking my head like, it's well, I'll go back, because I have a friend, she was in that same situation too. And How she dealt with it, I don't know. How someone could deal with some, you know, I don't know how I would handle a situation like that. For me, it would. sh- I'm thrilled off. I'm thrilled. Like, I don't think that's right. Um, because like you say, we can't always be there together every day, every minute, every second, right? But when we have a close family member like our dad, our father, brother, whatever, we should be able to be there, even if it's for 2 hours. You know, sometimes we have to put our bitterness behind us and let family be together when family needs to be together. So
Say
something
that
like
again. Say that one more time.
that. Put the bitterness behind us and let family be together when family needs to be together.
Mm,
you know
amen.
so um the death of my brother taught made me realize a lot, that life is short, and you do have to enjoy your loved ones as much as you can. Right, my mom, she's 83. um and I pray that we can have her for another
83.
another
Why not?
5 years, but um I have accepted the fact that she did live her life. She did what she wanted to do. She still do what she want to do. I think the older she gets, the more stubborn she is, but um now I'm trying to prepare myself, for when that some people don't like to prepare themselves for a time like that, but I'm trying to prepare myself now for a time like
Mhm.
that, because it's gonna happen. We're not all guaranteed to be here for the rest of our lives. It's another side that we have to see, another side where we be rejoined with those loved ones that we have lost. So um yeah, it's a it's tough. This was a good topic.
Yes, it
You know,
was a
it
very good
was
topic.
it was something that would needed to be, discussed, and hopefully, individuals out there can find a way to deal with grief. Find a way that if you haven't been there for loved ones or someone that's sick, that you're gonna find a way now to
Change that.
spend that little bit of time with them, even if it's a phone call, FaceTime. Hey, we have so much technology is different now. So, we shouldn't have any excuses where we can't check on a loved one and say, I'm just checking in to see how you're doing and call it a day, but we just have to own it and keep our faith and know that we have a day when we're born, and it's a day when we have to transition. We always look forward to the time that we here on earth, but we never look forward to that time when we have to transition.
No, we
No
don't.
one is ever prepared for it, or no one ever wants to talk about it. But I believe now, it's something that you have to discuss. You have to be a little bit more prepared for in life. Right now, and I believe more families are starting to engage more and discuss what are your plans. Like my mom says she would rather be cremated versus the other way. So I'm like, how do you deal with that, right? As kids, do you respect her wishes, or do you just do what you want to do? you know that's another topic too.
That's a whole nother episode, and I got a
That's what I was
mouthful for
thinking.
that one
But,
too.
Because
that's
I got my
something,
kids
and
set up on
I asked my
insurance.
siblings, what do you think about that? Because my mom was more like she was very private to herself, right? Her thing was she's here to, take care of her kids, and, be a wife to her husband. So she didn't really go out and, and do all that. And I could see why she would say she'd rather be cremated versus, you know, having a memorial service. But that's something I think about a lot too, because I just think before I really understood what cremation was, I always thought it was a bad thing, but now these days it's not. It's very popular now. So that's something I'm thinking about, when that time comes. Do we respect her wishes, or we do the opposite?
I have already told my son that I wanted to be cremated. I wanted
Mm.
him to spread some on my mother's grave, some on my father's grave, some on the bull at Choctaw. And then I wanted him to take the rest and either put it in a little thing and wear it around his neck for the rest of his days or get like a life-size poster and put my urn
Yeah.
next to it. Now, I don't know if he's
Yeah.
going to do those things. I also heard that you can turn people's ashes into diamonds. So that's, something else.
Yeah,
Miss
it's
Christie.
it's it's a lot you can do with it now. Like I was like, okay, okay. But
So, Elijah, when you rewatch this, baby, this is validation. Miss Christie, do you want to tell us about any stages of denial for you or any of the stages? Anger, denial, acceptance, depression, bargaining?
I guess I was looking at the what ifs, especially when my Aunt Karen died, because we were praying her through and her blood pressure had to get into a certain level before they could do another procedure. And we were praying to the Lord, and the Lord took her blood pressure up to that where could do the procedure. And I was thinking at that, I was like, Lord, because it was a witness, because we don't control the blood pressure. So the
Yeah.
nurse had to see that it was God operating through our prayers. But my what if is when they had cleaned her up and she was holding on to my prayer cloth, my talit. I wanted to shake her, hug her, hit her, and tell her to get up. You know, and
Yeah.
then sometimes in my mind, what if I would have done it and she would have got up? And I know that I don't control if she goes or not, but it's I still wanted, I still feel like that was an opportunity that I missed. You know, and it's something that we don't want to miss opportunities with the people that we love. And so that's just where I am with my mind and with my family. And then back onto uh, where she was talking about cremation. My mom said she wanted to be cremated. I want to be cremated. And I told my
mm,
kids, just cremate me. Y'all keep this money. I'm hoping to set my kids
I
up.
want to make sure you good when I'm gone, baby. Don't do nothing extra. Do the bare
Right.
minimum.
Create, make me, and then take this money and y'all start y'all lives or whatever you want to do.
Yes.
I don't want them spending a lot of money, on my service. I want them to enjoy themselves. And I'm like, if my kids don't invite you to something, just
mhm.
know, that's what I told my kids, because I want them to enjoy that money for themselves.
That's right. Miss Felicia says, live, love, and laugh. And then she also said, one good laugh for us. She says, talking about your mom, she doesn't want people staring at her. Mama's love.
Oh, she's a character. My mom is a character. She's a character, but we're thankful for her. So, and keep her in prayers because, she has Parkinson's. So we battle that too with her. But um, she's still a smart pants lady, but, we will let her have her shine.
Y'all, Miss Ebony says, put her in a cardboard box for outdoor carpet.
Oh, Ebony.
She says
Keep the
she's fine.
money.
Keep
It's
the
fine. Keep.
money. That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's all mamas. We want to make sure that
Yeah.
baby will be taken care of when we have to shut our eyes. I know my
Yeah.
mom felt the same way. I
Yeah.
thank each and every one of you ladies for joining us, but I do have one last question. So one of the things we all agreed with was that we had that moment of anger, right? Or maybe that moment of denial, that maybe it led into some depression or something like that. So when someone is at that very first, I don't know if I can say stage because I think everybody skips around different stages. You don't go 1 through 5. It's different for everybody. But upon receiving the news that you have just lost a loved one or a close friend or something of that matter, what would you suggest to them to do tonight? I mean, because we're already telling them that we feel like grieving is the right way to go, right? As a panel, we agree with that. What would be your advice to someone that's grieving? I think that's the way I was supposed to ask the question. What would be your advice to someone who's going through some grief right now? We'll start with you, Miss Christie, please.
Sure, sure. Actually, I have a cousin that she's currently grieved. She's still grieving her son that was murdered, and I
Mm,
have well, I have two cousins that were murdered. And anyway, whew, okay. And so I gotta say, just trust God. You know what I mean? Because we know Him as a risen King. We know Him as a comforter. We know Him as the peace that surpasses understanding. That you gotta trust God in your grieving, and I believe that they do. You know, but I believe that it's a up and down. Because it's still a hurt, and just trust God through the process.
Amen. So
mm.
sorry for your loss. And please let her know that we're sorry as well. Miss T, your advice to those that are grieving?
You have to feel it in order.
Mm,
Do not be afraid to feel it. But whatever emotions come up, honor your emotions because they are very valid and they are very important. So just continue to seek God through whatever it is that you're going through, the grieving process and all of that, and it'll work out in the end for you. It's going to be some days if you need to cry, cry. If you need to laugh,
mhm.
laugh. Whatever, you grieve how you need to grieve. And that's my final end. That's what all I have.
Thank you for that. And Miss Keisha.
And I agree. Seek God, and it's you that's grieving. It's on your own term. Um, of how long it takes you to grieve, but above all of it, always seek God and trust His process.
And that exactly is
Yeah.
exactly what your twin is saying in the chat box. Trust the process.
Yeah. You have to. You have to, right? You have to trust the process. It says lean not on your own understanding, but His. So we have to lean on His understanding, and know that we'll first on it, trust His process, and you'll be okay.
One of the prayers that I received when my mother died, from a lady that I was doing counseling with was, she asked me, well, we prayed that God would allow us to borrow from His strength until our own natural strength returned. And if I tell y'all that was not
Mm,
something that I feel like certainly got me through, it absolutely got me through. I'm agreeing with everything that these beautiful ladies have said. Trust the
mhm,
process, y'all. It's nobody's business. It's nobody's decision but yours. Go through the emotions like Tina Cole said, each and every one of them, feel them.
mhm,
Because that's where the healing starts. I thank each and every one of you for joining us. Y'all, I really thought I was going to fall out and hit the floor, so I'm going to wait until we get off to do that. But this has been excellent for me.
it
One
was.
thing I've learned is that I've healed a little bit more than I thought, and I'm grateful for
Yeah.
that. That's going to make me cry for sure.
Yeah.
Miss Felicia said, grieve in your own way, sit on your bed, chair, porch, hello on the porch, and talk to
It's up to
God. That's what
God.
we got to do. That's what we got to
Mhm,
do. As much as we like to have people around us, it really is going to be Him that's going to get us through. You ladies, tell us
absolutely.
where we can find y'all. I know this ain't the last time that y'all are going to be with me, right? Because I'm going to start harassing y'all more and more for some more. This was absolutely fabulous to me, great to my spirit. Tell everybody where they can find you, get some more good inspiration and wisdom, your social media platforms. Tell us about you. We'll start with Miss Wifey.
So, yes, the Wifey Lounge, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. I'm always trying to post some good, encouraging information for us wifeys and, the ex wifeys, wifeys to be, just, our everyday struggles, and know that we can get over it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I enjoy Wifey Lounge. Miss Christie, tell us where we can find you.
I'm most active on Facebook, so you can find me on Facebook, Christy Lee, because I'm your girl, Christy Lee, all day long.
Oh, when
All day long.
yes, all day long. I love it.
And Miss T Nicole, certainly not last, but certainly not least. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at T Nicole. And also you can find me under Driven by Purpose. That is PURPOS 3 on all social media.
All right.
And each and every one of these ladies have a YouTube too. So please be sure to go subscribe and follow because we're going to be doing some exciting. I know they're going to be doing some exciting things, and I'm going to be doing some exciting things coming up in the future. And I thank you guys for joining us. So, again, just to wrap it up, do you, boo, trust the process, and make God first, and you'll make it through. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining us. Good night.
Good night.